Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about herbs and psychic abilities, meditation, enlightenment, that sort of thing, and how you can use herbs to help you meditate, to help you be psychic or enlightened or whatever. Um, Herbs that can benefit your sixth chakra or third eye, things of that nature. Herbs that can help you ground, things like that. So the first herb I want to talk about is guduchi, and guduchi is one that I learned about from my herb teacher. I actually took classes. I took 2 years plus a summer class as well, studying clinical herbalism. I wanted to become a professional herbalist. That's what the courses were for. Turns out it's a lot more difficult to actually make money doing that, and then I got distracted um, by taking psychic courses instead and getting more into that instead, so I didn't follow through on that career path. But regardless, one of my teacher's favorite herbs was guduchi. It's an Ayurvedic herb from India. It also goes by the name giloy. I will post all these names of these herbs below this video so that you can have the proper spelling of them. But anyways, this is one that's associated with the third eye or sixth chakra, and it's said to cleanse all the channels, especially those going through the brain and the third eye. And one of the amazing things that I've heard that this can be good for is autism. For example, my teacher KP Khalsa, he works with autistic children. He works with all sorts of situations, but he specializes in neurology using herbs, and he's made many children who are pre-verbal autistic, have never spoken in their entire life, and been able to get them to actually speak, like, not just words but like sentences, which is pretty amazing that you can do that with herbs. And guduchi is one of those herbs that did that. And the reasoning from the energetic understanding of it from Ayurveda is that it clears the shrotas. The shrotas are the channels, kind of like meridians, except this is the Ayurvedic version of meridians. And specifically, it cleans out the brain and the third eye area and all that. Of course, it's not going to do that every time you give it to someone. Another thing you have to understand about herbalism is there are energetics, and energetics can be kind of complicated, but for the most simple way of thinking about it is energetics are hot, cold, dry, and wet. So is the person hot or are they cold? If you have lots of inflammation, your skin's turning red, and you're breaking out with hives, that's heat. Or even infections, like gum infections, that's also considered heat. Many things are considered heat. Generally, inflammation would be considered heat more than anything else. I think that would be the biggest one. Coldness is associated more with stagnation. Um, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to get too into the details of it, but you figure out where you kind of are on that spectrum, and then you take herbs that balance that out. If you're hot, you don't want to be taking a whole bunch of hot herbs. If for example, people who have hives and break out with skin inflammations on their skin, they usually find that eating spicy foods makes it worse. And so a lot of people have to cut that out of their diet. And that's because it's contributing to the heat. It's spicy, it's fiery. And so you want to balance it out. So that's just the very basics of herbalism. And the same with wet and dry. So it's all about balancing things out. So you don't want to take herbs that are too far one direction if you're already in that direction. You want to be looking for herbs that are the opposite to balance you out. So guduchi is not very one or the other. It's also called Rasayana, which is like it's a tonic, it's building in nature. It's kind of just like anyone can take it, and it's not going to cause an imbalance. So it's a great herb. It's also great for if you're sick as well. Um, it does all sorts of things, but those are the main ones. Those are the important ones. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Um, cordyceps is a great one for meditation. For me personally, within my experience, well, I've tried guduchi, the first herb I was talking about, and that helped. But I've noticed cordyceps specifically does a lot for me. I like to put cordyceps with lion's mane. Cordyceps is generally thought to give more oxygen to the body so that it's like breathing in the prana, the life force, etc., etc. Um, and then modern science says it helps with the oxygen distribution to your body. So it all kind of adds up in that way. So it's really good for focus, meditation, having the energy. Um, Having the prana and Chinese medicine would be called qi. It really boosts that up, and that allows you to be able to focus more. And lion's mane is a little bit different, but that one's more associated with growing the brain back, like literally, like people who have brain damage, it can actually help regrow it. And Alzheimer's, people who forget things as they get older, things like that, things of that nature. Lion's mane is really good for that. I like to combine the two and take both together. I just get the powder and I mix it together in gel caps and put it in gel caps and just take those. What I've found is that combination in particular, when I'm feeling kind of tired and like I just can't really meditate too well, I'll take that and it will really boost my focus, boost my energy, and it just makes things much more effortless, and it just gives me that ability to get through stuck energy much easier, where I may not be able to otherwise. Moving on to the next one, reishi. Reishi is a great herb, or it's a mushroom technically, but it's a great one. In Chinese medicine, it's said to do everything. It covers the spirit, which is called the shen, and the jing, which is like the storehouse of your energy, so to speak, like your endurance, like physical endurance. That's your jing, which is located in the kidneys, according to Chinese medicine. And then also your qi, which is kind of like the energy um, that you're running on. Where jing is more like your life, your how long you live, and like your endurance level. Chi is more like kind of like you can compare it to like when you just need like fast carbs just to get the quick energy going. That's more like chi. Um, I mean, it's more complicated than that. I'm just being very vague and simple. And then Shen is the spirit, so it does all three. Reishi is beneficial to all three. It's not going to put you out of balance. So far, all these herbs I've said so far, they're not going to put you out of balance. They're not any one direction or the other too far. So they're safe for anyone to take. And you can take pretty high doses, and you should be good. Um, Reishi is great. Just it's kind of just like for everything. I take it for just about everything. Like if you were to eat something that was bad for you, you could take reishi to make your stomach feel better, for example. Even if, like, drugs, for example, if you were to consume drugs and it was to, like, be destroying you and you don't feel right, reishi actually really helps restore that. Cordyceps is also, going back to what I was saying earlier, cordyceps is also really good for stress levels. Actually, somebody recently told me that they, like people taking psychedelics actually have found that taking cordyceps kind of lowers the anxiety, and like when you're starting freaking out and take a bunch of cordyceps, kind of like brings you back down. You're like, oh, okay, everything's fine. So that's just what I've heard, word of mouth. Reishi, similar, but Reishi's going to be better for like more like the body um, in particular, but it's also good for, it's just good for everything, like I was saying, all three realms. Um, and Reishi is just kind of like a cure-all for everything, basically. It's a great one. Um, moving on to, and so those are kind of just like general like energy boosting, kind of just keep you going, um, tonifying herbs. I'm going to move on to Rehmannia, which is more for grounding, like if you need to be more present in your body, less like your mind is blown around by the wind, so to speak. You want to be more present. You want to be more here, connected to the earth. Rehmannia will kind of like make you feel like you're coming back into your body, like you're here, you're now, and you can like almost feel gravity like pulling you down into the earth. You can be more connected to the center of the earth with Rehmannia. It's just a very, in Chinese medicine, it's a blood building tonic, and blood kind of represents something more than just blood itself, but it's kind of like nutrients, so to speak. And it's very good for that. So it's kind of calming, nourishing, grounding. And the only problem with it is that it can be like tough on the digestion. It's so tonifying, like building in nature, that it's almost like as if you were to eat a whole bunch of food all at once, and it kind of like can like make you like clogged up almost, if like digestively within your digestion. And so I like to pair it with another herb that is very similar to it, but it has the opposite balancing feature, which is to increase digestion, to get the digestion moving. It can cause diarrhea if you take too much at once, and that is called shou. It's also known mostly in America as foti, Foti, and it basically does the same thing. It's associated more with hair growth, although Rehmannia also does that, but Hoshibu Foti is more so commonly known to grow hair. In fact, it translates to something like Mr. Ho's black hair, because it apparently will grow your hair back. In China, everybody has black hair, so you know. So that's a great pair if you're trying to feel more grounded and more present, and less like, if like in astrology, for example, you could say air signs may benefit from taking those two herbs together. Um, Coptis, now this is kind of different. This is grounding, but it's specific for heat. So people who have too much fire element in them, so you could say a fire sign. If you have lots of fire in your astrology, that's one way to think about it. Or if you're just a very fiery person, um, Coptis will. It's called a refrigerant sometimes. It's also very cooling energetically, and it's draining. Like, I mean, draining in the sense like it will like pull the energy out of you. And when I take this herb, in high doses, you want to be careful with it because it can cause nausea. Because it's so bitter, and it's very, very, very bitter. It's disgusting, actually. It has a constituent berberine in it, and berberine is like very antibacterial, and people extract it and make it into pills for when they get sick and things like that. So it also is really good for if you're sick. It's also good for COVID-19 too, is what I've heard, and so is reishi as well. Actually, all of these herbs would be beneficial for COVID-19 so far that I've mentioned. But Coptis, for me, when I've taken large doses, which is bordering on being dangerous because then it can cause like nausea and like potentially diarrhea and things like that. if you take too much. So just work your way up to it slowly. Don't take a big dose at once. Just, experiment time after time and just, go a little higher. And then if it seems like it's starting to not feel right, then don't go any higher, you know. But what it does for me is it really feels like it's pulling stuff out of my head, like clogged energy. Like especially in the summertime, I like to take it, and the heat, it goes to the top of your head, and it's like when you feel your body, like the top of your head is always the hottest. It's also the most like red. Like if you look at your body, it's like the redness, and for me it's always like up here, and it's not like because of sunburn or whatever. It's just like the redness indicates heat in the body, and I always see like up here and like up here, and it's like when I look further down my body, it's not as red. And that's the energetics and herbalism. That's a sign of heat, and heat rises is what they say. So coptis in Chinese medicine, it actually is said to um, purge fire from the heart, so heart fire. But what I've noticed is that it just does it everywhere, especially in my head. And I'll feel it like just like pulling down. It's like I can really feel like gravity. Like it's just like everything's being sucked to the center of the earth. And the earth is neutralizing, and the earth, that's what it does. Things break down and fall back into the earth. That's the nature of it. So like you want excess energy just to drain into the earth, um, energetically. And coptis is like very powerful for doing that, but it's also very intense. It's not an herb for everyone. If you have a deficiency in Ayurveda, that would be Vata dosha, which is associated with air and ether. So, and this is generally people who are skinny. Those types of people may not want to take it, because it's kind of depleting. It's really bitter. It's not really going to go very well with that constitution. Um, However, for fiery, energetic people, it's great, and it will make you feel very grounded, and it kind of gives me the sensation like I've been meditating, even if I haven't sometimes, just by taking that. So that's a good one for some people. And the other thing I should mention is it's not one that you want to take um, like every day for extended periods, because it is depleting. It makes the energy, well, not just, it's not like depleting your energy, it's more like it's pulling out like excess energy. But what it can also do is it can also cause you to go to the bathroom a lot more, and so it kind of just pulls things out of you in that way too. And it's very cooling, and you can get to the point where energetically, according to traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, you can go too far in that direction very quickly with that herb. So it's a very potent herb, so just keep that in mind. So when it comes to lucid dreaming, I wanted to talk about mugwort. I use mugwort. I don't really use it anymore, but I used to use mugwort for a while when I was, trying to induce lucid dreams. I would take the essential oil and put a few drops like on my belly button when I'm laying in bed, and I just kind of like sit there. I hear that that is connected to the nervous system, and it, absorbs quicker into the nervous system. I don't know if it really makes any difference. I never really noticed much difference, but either way, it's kind of a convenient place to put it anyways, so that's what I did. You can also make it in a tea or whatever, and it's just it's a good one for that, for lucid dreams in particular. Um, Lemon balm is a good one. That's kind of like, it's nothing like coptis, but it's cooling, but to much less degree. So it's a good one for summertime. Although almost anyone can drink lemon balm, and it's not going to offset their balance energetically. Um, so lemon balm is good for the nervous system. It's good for if you're trying to meditate, but your mind is like, you're just kind of like stressed out. And It's also been shown to increase IQ in people. I think that's because of the nervousness and lowering the nervousness, and therefore people can kind of focus more. And it's a very common one to see growing around. It's underrated in my opinion because people are just like, oh, it's like dandelion or whatever. It's like it's everywhere. Like who cares? It's not a big deal. But it's actually one of my favorite herbs, I have to say. And moving on to hibiscus. Hibiscus is another one that's very common. People don't really associate it with, meditation, spirituality, enlightenment, or anything like that generally. But in Ayurveda, it actually very much so is. In Ayurveda, they say that um, it opens the heart chakra, um, and it connects you to devotion. It increases your devotion to whatever spiritual path you're on. And from my experience, I've found that it's very good in the summertime. It's calming. It really kind of makes me more present, from what I've noticed. It kind of just takes away all your worries and cares energetically, like all the stuff that's kind of like sharp, so to speak, like sharp energy that's kind of like jabbing you your aura or whatever, kind of just like softens it up, and it's like not an issue. It's kind of like rose petals. You can do rose petal tea as well, but I've found hibiscus to be more effective in that regard. Other things you can do are burning sage, as most people know, to cleanse the air. Sage is good for just general cleansing. There's another thing people burn called palo santo, and palo santo is like a wooden stick, um, as opposed to leaf bundles. And palo santo, as opposed to sage, is more like uplifting in energy. Like if there's kind of like a negative, kind of like overly serious, and you need to like kind of like uplift things, make things more bright. The word enlighten is lightening things, lighten the load. You don't want to be heavy. So Palo Santo is really good for that, whereas sage is more good for just like general cleansing of all energies. Um, and then there's dragon's blood, which I have heard is more so for like stubborn energies that are stuck. I like to take dragon's blood and burn it with sage to kind of amplify the just cleansing. And those are the ones that I like the most for burning to cleanse the energy of my house or wherever. Um, some other ones I'll mention really quick associated with the third eye is rosemary. Um, Rosemary is very simple. It can be a little warming, so if you're a fire sign, you might want to be careful with it. And in traditional yoga, they actually say that you want to be cold. You don't want to eat spicy foods. In fact, that's a big reason why a lot of people in Ayurveda say that garlic is bad for you. But some people say that, and the reasoning for that is because it's Rasayanic, which means it's enlivening. Basically, in other words, it's very fiery. In other words, it gets things like heated up, and so like too much heat isn't what you're trying to achieve in meditation according to traditional Ayurvedic yoga thought. And so like the whole hot yoga thing is kind of like a newer thing, but traditionally they would actually say to take a cold shower before you meditate and don't be in heat, to be cool. Like a cool mind is more settled, a hot mind is unsettled, and so that's their logic on that. So rosemary, although it is associated with stimulating the third eye, I did just want to add that in there, keep things balanced, is what I'm getting at. Passionflower is for people who are kind of hot. Again, it's kind of the opposite of rosemary. For people who rosemary would not work for, maybe try passionflower instead. It's a little sedating, so it's the opposite of rosemary in that sense too, because rosemary is kind of stimulating to the third eye. Um, Passionflower will help you kind of relax, so you can be, just sink down into your meditation, as opposed to like all this stuff going on in your head distracting you, and you're not able to just like sink down into it and just relax and be into it. So as a summary, I think the best ones, if you're just trying to meditate in general and you just want to take one of these herbs, I would recommend cordyceps. That's a pretty good one that will really like, you'll feel it if you take a lot of it. You'll start to just feel it, and you'll feel more enlivened, and as if you've been doing deep breathing meditations. It kind of creates that sensation. I would also highly recommend reishi mushrooms, just for just balancing everything, mind, body, spirit, all of it. So I hope this comes in handy. This is probably a lot of information. I wrote down the names of what I wanted to talk about, so I'm just going to copy and paste that to below this video so that anyone watching this can use that as a reference to these herbs, and you can look up more information about these herbs for yourself. Ultimately, herbalism is about the uniqueness of each individual, and so no herb is like the right herb for everyone. Everyone's different. So I definitely didn't mention all the herbs that are going to be beneficial for the third eye. Of course, there are tons. So these are just the ones that I have a lot of experience with that work for me the best. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. One more thing I want to say actually is I have a formula for the Rehmannia. I was talking about the Rehmannia. It's very grounding, very nourishing, and I said that there's the other herb that I like to pair with it, which is Wu, aka faux tea. And I have a formula that I actually make in a pressure cooker that is actually delicious. It tastes really good. And it's like a coffee substitute. So I think this is too much for this video, but I think I might make a video where I actually am showing the end product of it, where I actually tell you the recipe. So if you want to hear that, let me know. I'll probably make that video next time I make it. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe to this channel, and that will be happening soon. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Thank you.